Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world: movies, movie news, streaming, television, all sorts of good stuff. And joining me here today is the one and the only Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing today, sir?
John, I'm very excited for this show. I wonder why.
Oh, I wonder if there's a few topics that might be right in your wheelhouse that you're excited to talk about here today.
Just a few.
And guys, hopefully there are some topics here that you are excited that we're going to be talking about here today as well. We do have a lot of stuff to get to. Here's how the show is going to go. In the first half of the show, we're going to take a bunch of predetermined topics. Then we're going to go into the second half of the show where we're going to take your live comments and questions. And if you've got a live comment or question you'd like to see on the show, simply go to the tip link that's in the top of the description of this video or enter it in manually. That's streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show if it's appropriate. And of course, you'll be supporting the channel at the same time. And by the way, guys, I want to remind you, if you've not done so already, why don't you take a second and click on that subscribe button, become subscribed to the John Campea YouTube channel. It'll keep you up to date on all the stuff that we've got going on here. Okay, guys, there are a couple of things off the top for us to get to here before we get into our scripted main topics. And the first thing we're going to discuss here is this. One of the movies we've been talking a bunch about a little bit lately is Borat 2. Borat's subsequent movie film. Unlike that fake title they released, Something Pornographic Monkey or whatever it was before, they changed that up. Now, of course, it's coming out in a couple of days. Yesterday, we heard from Seth Rogen saying that he thought that the new Borat trailer or the new Borat film, he said he's seen it 6 times already. He's already seen the movie 6 times, and he says it has some of the funniest scenes he's ever seen in movie history. High praise. Well, it is dropping on Amazon in a couple of days, and the reviews today, the review embargo has dropped, and the reviews have started to come out, and they're pretty good. As a matter of fact, if we go over to our friends over at Slash Film, they're calling Borat 2 Borat's subsequent movie film review audaciously and raucously hilarious with a surprisingly tender heart. That's not something I expected to hear. Was tender heart. I mean, when I think about Borat and all the good stuff that is in Borat, tender heart is not one of the things that I was expecting to hear. But you know what? They're not alone. The reviews for Borat have been really good. As a matter of fact, if we jump over and take a look at Rotten Tomatoes right now, again, it's early. The review embargo just dropped today. 27 of the official reviews come in. It's currently holding an 89%. And what's interesting is a lot of the critics calling it ragingly hilarious, but a couple are saying some things that I said I was a little bit worried about, which was, is it still hilarious? For instance, it's 89%, but if we look at like the Hollywood Reporter, the very first thing the Hollywood Reporter says is, the joke isn't funny anymore. You know, that's what I've been saying is kind of one of my apprehensions about Borat 2, because I love the first one, is the shtick played out? Like, has it been more played out? But then you go over to Variety, and Variety saying, even more than in his previous feature outing, Borat's subsequent movie film delivers a consistent, coherent, feature-length narrative punctuated with outrageous, unpredictable set pieces, and it goes on and on. I mean, really, a lot of people, this seems like the people who loved it, which are in the majority, really loved it. The people who like the film seem to really love it. And the ones who didn't, the couple that didn't, basically playing into one thing I said I was a little bit worried about is the shtick played out? Whatever. But, hey, listen, it's basically riding a 90% at this point. A lot of the stuff sounds very good, enthusiastic, but also a lot of these critics are echoing what Slash Film said as well, which was there's surprising heart to it. Now, I'm going to guess, I haven't seen the film yet, so I'm going to guess that maybe has to do with the relationship with the daughter, which I said is one of the big turnoffs for me in the trailer. I didn't like that they brought in another character. I mean, if Borat's got to have a sidekick, I wanted it to be Azamat. I wanted it to be Ken Davidian from the first film. I wanted Azamat there with him, but they brought in a daughter. I didn't really like that, but I'm going to assume that this tender heart and really warm moments, I'm going to assume they're talking about the daughter. I don't know if that's for sure. But overall, Rob, it seems like the responses to this are pretty big and pretty positive. You've seen the reviews for Borat's subsequent movie film. Are they falling in where you expected them to be? Are you hearing anything you're surprised to hear? What are your thoughts?
No, I mean, I have to say I'm really looking forward to the film. I really like the first one. But again, like you, I was kind of thinking, well, where do you go with this to make it new and fresh and interesting? And I guess the daughter is an interesting way to go. I mean, I'm always apprehensive when they bring in a child sidekick to anything, that unless it's Baby Yoda. But other than that, I think that the film, dude, I'm in. I'm going to watch it that first day. It's probably one of those movies I won't be able to wait for. It's like when it drops at midnight. Click. I'm going to watch it. I'll stay up, pour myself another glass of whiskey, and get right into it.
I've mentioned I've got my apprehensions about it just because I do like the first one so much, and I just wonder if the shtick's played out. But I'd be lying if I didn't tell you I will also be waiting for the moment it drops to hit click.
I know, right?
See how it does. All right, guys. The question for you though is, what do you think about the reviews coming out? They're quite strong. Is that what you expected to see? Are you hearing some things that are surprising you? Are you looking forward to Borat's subsequent movie film? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, let's move on to one more off the top, and that is this. About a year ago, Rob, you'll remember back at D23, one of the films that they presented, and I said coming out of it, out of all the stuff they showed, the thing that excited me the most was none of the little Marvel stuff that they talked about, even though I'm a huge Marvel guy. It wasn't the Star Wars stuff they talked about. They even had Ewan McGregor come out on stage to announce that he was coming back as Obi-Wan. That was huge. But none of that was what I was really buzzing about coming out of D23. Coming out of D23, if you remember, the thing I was buzzing most about was this little animated film they did a big presentation on called Raya and the Last Dragon. And I was psyched from what I saw. What I saw made me extremely excited. I thought it looked fantastic, and I couldn't wait.
Yes.
Now, there has been a lot of behind-the-scenes drama going on with this film. They've changed some direction. They've, shuffled a few things around. Obviously, they also changed the lead voice actress. They swapped out the voice actress that came out on stage at D23 with Kelly Marie Tran. I love Kelly Marie Tran. So they've done a few things, but now the trailer they finally revealed to the main population. The trailer for Raya and the Last Dragon is now out. And I got to tell you, I was underwhelmed with it. I am underwhelmed by this trailer. And I think the reason I am underwhelmed by it has a lot to do with the fact that I feel that what they showed us at D23 was by far superior. There was something about the presentation they showed us of Raya and the Last Dragon at D23. It felt more whimsical. It felt certainly more fun. It had a sense of fun to it, and it definitely had a unique identity to it. I watched this trailer, and it just didn't have that sense of whimsy to it that the presentation that got me so excited D23 did. In all honesty, it feels a little bit, I didn't get this sense at all from D23, but this trailer almost feels like they're trying to rip off Korra, The Legend of Korra, a little bit. I'm not saying that they are, clearly, but that's what it did. Look, I am still very, very excited to see this movie, incredibly so. I'm just saying that I felt like the D23 presentation was a lot superior, and therefore I felt a little bit let down by this trailer, and I was very excited for this trailer. Now, maybe somebody who wasn't at D23 and didn't see that presentation to set them up like it set me up, maybe they come into the Raya and the Last Dragon trailer cold and have a much different experience than me. But yeah, for me, I gotta say, I'm not thrilled with this trailer, but maybe it's because my expectations were set with D23. Rob, you were not at D23.
No.
So this is really your first real exposure to some Raya and the Last Dragon content. So I'm curious to know, what was your take on this trailer?
It looked all very familiar to me. It's girl comes out. She Raiders of the Lost Ark-esque invades some temple to get some artifact and is stopped, and then gets into a Jedi battle with somebody. It looked very Lucasfilm to me. And like you talked about having a sense of whimsy to it. I mean, yeah, there's a cute animal, but it just seemed familiar. There wasn't anything in it that I went, oh, that's something new. It felt like I'd seen it all before. But I will say I love the animation. I love the look of it. I'll see it. But like you, I was underwhelmed.
Yeah, look, no taking away. It's beautiful. It looks gorgeous. And here's something I don't understand why. I get not wanting to show the dragon in the first teaser trailer, but they showed us the dragon in the little preview spot they showed us at D23 a year ago. And so if you're going to show us that a year ago, I really feel like it would have served this trailer well had they showed, but I don't know, maybe they're just hitting the reset button on it. Again, it just didn't feel like the same movie that I felt like they previewed for us at D23. Because again, like I said, nothing else excited me at D23 as much as this project. This project excited me more than anything else they showed us there. And I just kind of felt like, but you know what, Rob? It's like I always say about anything else. It's the first trailer. It's the first trailer. So let's see what happens as they dig into it and get a little bit further. The question is for you guys. What did you think about the trailer for Raya and the Last Dragon? Maybe for most of you guys, this is your first experience with it. Maybe as a first experience, you thought, you know what, Campea? It looks great. So maybe you thought you loved it. Maybe you're like me and you're one of those people who happened to be at D23 and you saw the preview they did there that I thought was a little bit better. Regardless, what are your impressions of this thing? Jump into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's now move into our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, whenever you come across a big piece of movie news you think we should be talking about, simply go anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's totally free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's get into that main topic number one. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Francis H., who writes, "Hey, John and team. I just read that the writer of the original The Last Starfighter movie has said that the final rights issues have been cleared and that they are now moving forward on making another one that is a cross between a sequel and a reboot. I've heard you talk about this movie before, so just how excited are you about this news?" Thanks a lot for saying that in, man. How excited am I? Okay, listen. When people ask me about like prime movies that just really need a reboot or an older film that would be fantastic to have, you know, a sequel brought into today, I always go to The Last Starfighter. That and Mystery Men. I go to Mystery Men a lot too. But The Last Starfighter for me is a movie that I have no idea why that they never did a sequel to this. I have no idea why there hasn't been a reboot in the last 15 years of this thing. This movie is more, the basic subject matter of The Last Starfighter is more relevant today than it's ever been, especially with the bombastic, proliferation of the popularity of the video game medium. It's more relevant today than ever. For those of you who don't know what The Last Starfighter is, I'm going to stop really, really quick here. Kid lives in a trailer park. The really one thing he does for fun is there's a video game, like an arcade style video game outside the office at the trailer park. And it's called Last Starfighter. And he just goes and plays it. But little did he know that video game was actually planted there by an alien race who is searching throughout the galaxy for those rare individuals who have the gifts to be starfighter pilots, to go and defend the universe. And
from Zur and the Kodan Armada.
That damn right! Kerr and the Zodan Armada. I get my syllables on mixed. The Kodan Armada. What do we do now? We die. I mean, it's so good. The Last Starfighter is so good. Anyway, yes, they've been talking for a long time about wanting to get something going here, Rob, but now it looks like movement is actually happening. The writer, Jonathan Buthiel, writes, "It looks like we'll be making a deal to get it going." Gary Whitta is who he's talking about, who's doing this with him. He wrote like Rogue One, for example, Star Wars Rogue One. It looks like we're going to get it going. Gary's a gifted collaborator. We'll be writing the script together. But it's taken a long time. I had to go through a process that took years to recapture the rights, but that was recently completed. And although nothing is ever clear sailing, it looks like we have a really good opportunity now. So I am really looking forward to taking it up. So it's got to be stated here that this is not an announcement that a Last Starfighter sequel, requel, reboot, whatever you want to call it, is officially greenlit. It's not. He's just saying that the last hurdles have now been cleared, that we can now develop this. We can now develop this, and that's what's got to happen first before any studio is going to look at greenlighting it. And this is you. And Gary Whitta being attached to it as well. I'm excited about that. I think that sounds great. This is one of those movies, Rob. A lot of us as people have connections to films we saw as kids, and therefore we have a real connection that way. But this is one of those rare films that for me, I have this connection to because I watched this thing as a kid and I loved it. But also I legitimately think, as I try to sit back and be objective about it and say, this movie, this project, this title has all of those distinct features that you would look for in an older IP that would be ripe to be brought back to the big screen today. It really does. It is thematically something more relevant than it's ever been before. It would absolutely benefit from the new modern day technology and how they can make this thing go. And it is an enduring story and a little bit of a coming of age tale as well. It's just got all these things wrapped up that I completely believe, biased or not, that Last Starfighter is something that would do very well today. I think it would do very well today. Rob, you've heard this news. I know you've seen The Last Starfighter. What do you think about this news? What's your reaction to it? And what do you think the chances are that this actually does stretch all the way out and gets a green light sometime in the near future?
Well, like you said, I mean, this movie it has an irresistible premise. You know, when it first came out in 1984, it was really the second movie after Tron that made heavy use of computer graphics. And all of the space effects and stuff were CG. And looking back at it now, it's pretty dated, but the story is so good. You know, we were in the midst in 1984, we're coming on the end of the video game craze where arcades were huge. But now our relationship to video games has totally changed. I mean, they become ubiquitous. You didn't have to go put quarters in a big stand-up arcade game anymore. I mean, we've got the most sophisticated gaming consoles ever. So the idea that an alien race is using video games now to find people capable of fighting their war for them, I mean, you know, every kid in America, every kid across the planet, we're all connected. We're playing MMORPGs. I mean, the idea behind it is even better than it was in 84, because the idea now that everybody's connected, and maybe instead of like one kid, there's a group of people, you know, like there's a multinational task force of teenagers that are brought, you know, like the Dirty Dozen from Earth, and they all have to train. And so instead of just one, maybe you could call the movie The Last Starfighters. You know, I mean, it could be something really interesting, and you could really make it. I mean, look, I don't mean to write the script as we're talking, but I mean, I think the whole concept is just like you said. How can you have not revisited this yet? I mean, this is any kid who's picked up a video game controller or is playing Star Wars Squadron now or Microsoft Flight Simulator. I mean, who doesn't dream of strapping on a real Colonial Viper and going to town on the Cylons? I mean, that's what this is, man. It's the ultimate wish fulfillment. And look at that. Look at the Gunstar. The Gunstar, one of the great. I mean, it kind of looks like a Star Fury from Babylon 5, but this is the precursor to that. This is one cool starfighter. Who doesn't want to fly one of those? They don't even have to update that design.
I agree. There's so much going on here, and just such a good way they could update. Maybe even take a bit of a different approach. You know, the 84 version was a little bit more comedy. They could go a little bit more serious with it today while putting in like dashing and. I just think there's a lot of potential here. Question is for you guys. What do you think about this news about finally some movement on The Last Starfighter? Maybe a lot of you guys have never even seen it. It is an older film. I was a kid when it came out. Go and watch The Last Starfighter.
John, it's 36 years old.
Oh, unbelievable. Guys, go and give this movie a shot. What do you think about this? Jump down to the comment section below and leave your thoughts there. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Charlie Harris. And Charlie Harris writes, "Hey, John, it's now official that Power Rangers is getting a full cinematic universe that will include TV and movies that will have continuous storylines and crossovers. Knowing how popular Power Rangers is worldwide, do you think this could become the next MCU? Thanks." All right, Charlie, thanks a lot for sending that in. And yes, we've known for a while that they were looking at eyeballing at restarting Power Rangers again. It was really not that long ago that we finally got Power Rangers on the big screen. And, it did its thing, did not do what they wanted it to do. So they're scrapping that and restarting again. Now, though, Hasbro now owns the property. Hasbro is now in charge of it. And they've come out and they said they are doing the full cinematic universe treatment to Power Rangers, Rob. This is what they said over at Screen Rant. A new Power Rangers cinematic universe spanning both film and television, they're going to be interconnected, they say, is officially in the works. In 2017, Paramount sought to revive the property on the big screen with a Power Rangers movie aimed at a newer generation, but it failed to elicit much excitement. As a result, there have been reports of Power Rangers getting another reboot. This latest Power Rangers film will reportedly be set in the 1990s. It's going to be set in the 1990s and will be directed by Jonathan Entwistle from Netflix's I Am Not Okay With This. Now, I got to admit, I have not seen I Am Not Okay With This. That's not a film I've watched. So I really can't say here nor there whether that's a good thing or bad thing. But apparently they're giving him like the full reins. He's going to be overseeing everything, like the movies, the television, and all that kind of stuff, how the stories are going to be interconnected. He's going to be their Kevin Feige. He's going to be the Power Rangers Kevin Feige. Couple of interesting things here to me. Number one is this notion that it's going to be set in the 90s. I'm going to be straight with you. I think that's a mistake. Yeah. I think that's a mistake. I think that is a desperation attempt at them going, well, when the Power Rangers were popular in the 90s. And we tried the new updated one in modern time. That didn't work. So you know what the problem was? It was the fact that we weren't set in the 90s. That was the problem. It feels kind of desperate to me. I don't think that's a good move on their part. I don't know how, especially if you're trying to get a new generation of kids into Power Rangers, I don't know how setting this is in the 90s is going to accomplish that. But then again, I don't know what their full vision is. Maybe if I knew what their full vision was, I would go, oh yeah, setting it in the 90s is a good idea. So based simply on what information is available to me right now, I look at this and I say, well, this looks like a mistake. This looks like a huge mistake. The other thing that looks like a huge mistake to me, Rob, is the fact that you just tried to relaunch the Power Rangers. And by the way, I thought it was pretty good. Like I poo-pooed all over them doing a new Power Rangers movie. I thought, listen, the Power Rangers, everybody's saying, oh, John, you don't understand how popular Power Rangers are. This is going to be $1 billion film, John. You don't understand. You don't get it, John. I had people yelling at me. I'm like, okay. You know what? I kind of like that Power Rangers movie. I was totally shocked and surprised when I came out of the movie and I just said, you know what? That actually wasn't that bad. But here's the problem, Rob. It wasn't bad. It was, I would argue that last Power Rangers movie was actually pretty good for what it was. And it still flopped monumentally. It was not bad. And it still flopped monumentally. I applaud guts. And I applaud showing confidence in your properties, but to a reasonable limit. And to me, it would almost seem like, hey, Hasbro, why don't you launch one thing? Why don't you put out one thing regarding Power Rangers and see if you hit the mark on it before coming out after you just had another movie that completely flopped and said, you know what we should do? Set it in the 90s and launch with a full cinematic universe. You know who tried to do that recently? Universal tried doing that with their Dark Universe and their Monster Universe. How'd that work out? Instead of coming out and saying, hey, listen, we've got an unproven property here right now. Let's get one thing out. Let's see if we hit the mark. If we don't, let's readjust and pick it up a few years later. And if it does, then let's go full throttle. Coming off of a monumental failure, and again, I thought the movie was pretty good, but coming off of a monumental failure into let's go balls to the wall, full out cinematic television movies. We'll set our own Kevin Feige, and we'll set in the 90s. I got to tell you, Rob, Hasbro has done some boneheaded things before. This seems like a pretty boneheaded thing. I think this just sounds ridiculous. I can't imagine taking a wronger approach. Did you just say wronger, John? Yes, I did. I can't imagine taking a wronger approach to this than what they seem to be doing. I know, Rob, you've seen these reports. What's your take on this?
Well, my Burnett axiom has always been never put your universe before your characters or your story.
Yes, it has.
And that seems to be what they're doing here. There are franchises that I think sometimes are past their sell by date, and this is one of them. I think the Power Rangers was something that was kind of its time, and it went on for a long time. There's a lot of people who love Power Rangers. They grew up with Power Rangers, but I think Power Rangers is a different. It's harder to update Power Rangers to be for a more adult audience. Whereas if you look at something like Transformers, you can sort of up age it. You can make it appeal to older. Like, look, I thought Transformers as a science fiction concept is really interesting. The Power Rangers is sort of stuck in a younger demographic. And it's I hate to say it's for kids, and I think that it doesn't travel up past high school. And I think the idea that Power Rangers can be just like the Transformers, I think is wrong-headed, because I saw that first Transformers movie. I was too old to be a Transformers cartoon fan. I mean, I actually like the Transformers movie that came out in the 80s, but I'll tell you, when I saw the first Transformers movie, the movie Michael Bay's film, I liked it. The story of a boy in his car, Megan Fox, and the special effects technology was amazing. And the idea that the war between the Autobots and the Decepticons, that had a very science fiction bent to it that I was into. I don't feel the same way with the Power Rangers. Even the very name Power Rangers says 12 years old to me. And I just think the reason that the Power Rangers movie, as good as it was, and I, like you, liked it, I just think it's fighting the fact that everybody thinks that Power Rangers is for kids, little kids.
And here's the thing, too. A lot of stuff aimed at kids can be incredibly successful. Like, you can have stuff that's targeted at kids and be incredibly successful. Hasbro, a lot of their business is targeted at kids. And they have been, there's a reason they've been around for as many decades as they have. They have been reasonably successful at it. The fundamentals of, okay, if you want to make it for kids, and if you want to target, like, say, the 17 and under crowd, that's fine. Don't set it in the 90s. That's because by setting it in the 90s, it seems like you're trying to capture a nostalgia element to it. There seems to be a nostalgia factor they seem to want to try to recapture. Well, that's not how you get new kids into it. And then beyond that, as again, what I said earlier, there's the basic fundamental principle of, for kids or not, your last movie made $145 million, not on opening weekend, not in North America, worldwide. That Power Rangers movie only made $145 million. Now, if it was a steaming pile of trash, maybe you could then go, well, yeah, but if we make it better, we'll have better results. It was not bad. They didn't do a bad job. And it hurts me to say that, because I for like a year said that movie's going to be crap. That movie's going to be absolute garbage. And I actually had to eat my words. I had to come out and say, you know what? I actually had kind of fun with it. I thought they did a good job. But even then, they only made $145 million. How do you come out and then say, let's launch a cinematic universe off of a failure? I don't get it, Rob. Explain this to me.
Well, I think that there's decisions that are made in a corporate boardroom that don't take into consideration things that you don't necessarily quantify on paper. And that is, the Power Rangers aren't cool. I mean, we live in a world where we're getting the Avengers shared universe. Hell, Hobbs and Shaw is a spinoff from Fast and Furious. And the very audience that might have been the target for Power Rangers is now watching the Fast and the Furious and the MCU. And the Power Rangers can't compete. The Power Rangers' very concept is kind of fun, goofy. And I don't think with our video game playing culture, when you're 12 years old and you're playing whether you're playing Dota 2 or whether you're playing Warcraft or whether you're whatever, the world has kind of moved on. And Power Rangers is one of those concepts that I think is simply, for lack of a better term, uncool. And look, even Power Rangers reinvented itself for 20 years. And I just don't think the world look, Hasbro thinks, well, everybody loves Power Rangers. Why can't we bring it back? Look at Transformers. They're not the same. They're not the same, and they can't be thought of in the same way. Transformers, you can up-age Transformers, and the idea of cars transforming into robots appeals to me. I love that, just like I love, Pacific Rim or Godzilla movies or all that. I love Japanese science fiction. So Power Rangers should be something that appeals to me, but no, it doesn't. It doesn't appeal to my adult self. I don't think it would have appealed to me if I was 17 now. It's just a concept that belongs in a lower age bracket. And that's not to say that it won't be successful, but they think of it. They think that they're going to do MCU numbers. And there's nothing to bear that out. So why even talk about a shared universe? It's like, it'd be like trying to start something like Quibi, which from the get-go was a terrible idea. And by the way, I read an article today. Quibi's on the way out.
Yeah.
So
not
why not
surprising.
do Power Rangers? Why save yourself a lot of trouble?
Yeah.
Try and make one movie.
If you want to go at kids, fine. Then don't do these other mistakes you're making. Like they're making, if you wanted to target this at kids, then they're making some terrible decisions because what they're doing is the wrong way to try to attract a new group, a new generation of kids to watching it. So they're going to fail if they're trying to appeal on a nostalgia factor to older folks. They're going to fail if they're trying to bring in newer audience and target it at kids. You don't set in the 90s if you're trying to target this at kids. And so I'm trying to see what is it they're seeing that makes them think, hell yeah, this is going to work. And hell yeah, let's not just do it with one movie first. Let's throw all the money at it and say we're going to do a full cinematic television movie, big screen crossover universe. When you flipped and fell on your face the last time out, I don't know. It just seems like wrong-headed.
I think they look at things and these boardroom decisions. They're like, well, Stranger Things is set in the 80s, so we can do that and set it back.
But that has a much broader appeal. Appeal.
Absolutely. And I just these decisions that get made sometimes. We look, John. You and I marvel at them. If we were in a position in a Hollywood boardroom and we were having a meeting with Hasbro, which now owns E1 or something, and we would be like, guys, no, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. I mean, you and I know that. We're movie pundits talking on the internet, but they're going to just blaze forth to create this thing. I'm telling you, it ain't going to work.
We'll see what, I mean, hey, I wish them all the luck in the world. I hope
too.
Nothing more than to have the same experience I had with the last Power Rangers, which was going in thinking this is going to be a disaster and coming out going, that was pretty good. I hope they're able to do the same thing. We'll have to wait and see. Question here is, guys, what do you think about this new Power Rangers cinematic cross multimedia empire universe that they're setting up here? Maybe you think it's still got a lot more gas left in the tank. Maybe you see the spark of genius that's in this idea that we're not seeing right now. Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to the third and final main topic today. And our third and final main topic today gets submitted to us by Ezra. And Ezra writes, "Hey, John and crew. Saw news that the Fast and Furious series is set to end with 2 more installments after 9. So that means we would still have 3 films still to come, both with Justin Lin directing. Do you have any thoughts on this?" All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, it is the Energizer Bunny that just keeps on going and going. It is the Fast and the Furious franchise. To set the table, I was not a Fast and Furious fan. Actually, I still hold a lot of hatred for the first Fast and Furious movie. It is nothing but a Point Break ripoff. Plain and simple. That's what it is. 2 I thought was terrible. 3 I thought was terrible. And 4 I thought it started to turn around. And then 5, 6, and 7, I just fell in love with the franchise. And it's just kept going and going. This is a franchise unlike any other we have really seen in the modern era. A franchise of a silly, kind of fun, popcorny series, if you will, that took on a life of its own and kept going and going and growing and growing. The little injection of franchise Viagra known as Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson didn't hurt either. And it just kept growing and growing. And even when they put out a couple of subpar efforts, like maybe in what do they call it? Fate of the Furious, Fast 8. That wasn't so great, but I still had fun with it. It still made tons of money. And now we're waiting on 9. It was supposed to be in theaters already. We're going to be still waiting for a while. But they came out and announced that they are indeed already greenlighting 2 more, 10 and 11, and that 11, they're saying, will be the final installment. This comes to us from the folks at Screen Rant. Oh, this was the wrong one. This comes to us from the folks over at Variety who writes, the central Fast and Furious franchise will come to a conclusion after the 10th and 11th films, Variety has confirmed. Justin Lin, who directed the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 9th Fast and the Furious films, will return to direct the final 2 installments and drive the franchise, you see what they did there? And drive the franchise to the finish line after over 2 decades in the theater. That is wild to think about that. 2 decades in the theaters. This is key. This does not, however, necessarily mean that the Fast and Furious cinematic universe is coming to an end. Now, that's a key thing to say, because while they are saying right now there's not going to be a Fast and Furious 12, that doesn't mean movies in the Fast and the Furious universe are going to come to an end. They've already had Hobbs and Shaw. Big hit, made over close to $750 million at the box office, if I'm not mistaken. They're going to do more of those. And they are going to look at doing additional spin-offs. But as far as that core, Fast and Furious, the whole family being together for Fast and Furious 12, 13, 14, 15, and onward, they're saying that's coming to an end. Responses around the internet have been interesting, maybe none more interesting than the response from MCU and DC Universe director James Gunn, who responded to this news. He came out on Twitter and to the news of them ending the Fast and Furious after 11. And James Gunn writes, Universal announces it will stop printing money just because. Universal announces it will stop printing money just because, which I thought was a rather insightful kind of look at that. But I mean, think about this. If you look back at when that first Fast and the Furious movie came out, I think I was just graduating high school at the time. If you would have told me at that time that when I came out of the theater of that first Fast and Furious movie, fuming because I was so mad that it was ripping off a far superior film in Point Break, Johnny Utah. But if you had told me, hey, guess what? This franchise is going to go on for over 2 decades. 20 years from now, you will be doing a movie show and you're going to be talking about the 9th, 10th, and 11th films in these franchises, which would have grossed billions of dollars. I would have said you're an idiot. But who's the idiot? Here they are. They're still making these films. But I'm going to come out on a limb right now and tell you this, Rob. I don't believe this for a second. I'm telling you right now, I do not believe this for a second. I do not believe that there will not be a Fast and the Furious 12. I just don't believe it. Now, that can change, of course. I mean, we could get to Fast and the Furious 10 and it makes like $500 million, which is great for most movies, but it makes $500 million. And then they do 11 and it makes $425 million. And then, okay, yeah, I'll believe they're not doing it in 12. But I'm telling you what, they put out Fast and the Furious 11 or 10 and it makes, or 9, let's start with 9, that hasn't even come out in theaters. They come out with Fast and Furious 9, it makes $900 million. They come out with Fast and the Furious 10, it makes $1.1 billion. They come out with Fast and Furious 11, it makes $875 million. I don't believe for a second they're going to stop. What does Universal have in its quiver right now, Rob? What does Universal have in its quiver other than, dinosaurs with Jurassic World? What do they have in their quiver that they can point at and say, here's a franchise that will be guaranteed moneymakers for us in a given year? What do they got? They don't have much. Their Dark Universe didn't pan out so well for them. So, barring massive collapse in the Fast and Furious franchise over the coming 3 films, I don't believe for a second that the 12 will be the last one, even if they have spin-offs planned. Now, I believe that some of them at Universal may believe it right now. Maybe because you're looking at 3 films down the line. We still got 9 to come out, and we got to have 10, and we got to have 11. I have no doubt maybe Vin Diesel himself is thinking, you know what, guys, we've been doing this a long time. I mean, maybe after we've been doing this for another 5 or 6 years, it's time to cut off. Maybe that is what they're feeling right now. But money talks, Rob. Money talks. And this thing is, as James Gunn so accurately pointed out, this franchise is printing its own money. I don't see this happening. But Rob, I wanted to ask you about this. What is getting lost in this is that, unlike a lot of franchises, they're already coming out and not announcing the next movie. This is basically an announcement of the next 2 movies, and the fact that by the end of the day, with Justin Lin directing these things, this is essentially, if it wasn't already, making the Fast and the Furious really a Justin Lin franchise. But anyway, Rob, you've heard this news that 11 will apparently be the final one. What's your reaction to this, and what stands out to you?
Well, I'm a big staunch supporter of this franchise. I love it for what it is. And I love the fact this means we're getting Sun Kang. They said he's going to be in all 3. Well, the one we've got coming out, we know he comes back, and he's going to be in 2 of these. So justice for Han, I think, is served. But other than that, there's one thing that people don't necessarily always take into account. And whenever these franchises are this successful, what ends up happening is everybody that's involved with making them gets paid more and more money. And you get to a point where, especially with an ensemble cast and the same filmmakers, they get paid more and more money. They get performance bonuses when something does well. So it gets to a point where when a movie, even a Fast and the Furious movie, let's say the outside earning potential of that movie, $1.5 billion. I think Part 7 made that, or less. So you're paying people more and more and more money for each film, but you're still making the same amount of money. So it's costing you a lot more. So the films, they still are making tons of money, but Universal is paying out more and more and more money. So they're actually making less per film than they used to. So it actually is a law of diminishing returns. So ultimately, if you get rid of your core cast, you can keep the concept going, but if you stop with Vin Diesel, he might get a consulting producing fee or something, but you don't have to pay him his what he's going to be making on these next movies, and then you've got the rest of the cast, what they're making and what Justin Lin is making and what the writers are making and the producers are making. These films, when they get this successful, that's why sometimes franchises just end, after a trilogy or a 4th movie. Look at Pirates of the Caribbean. It gets to the point where, well, we have to get rid of Johnny Depp because we can't, he's got enough problems, but we're not going to pay him what we'd have to pay him because then the movie isn't profitable or not as profitable as it should be. So I think that's kind of where they're at with this franchise. They can't make really any more with the core cast and the core creative team because they make too much money. So the profitability of these films, as much as they earn, they're earning less and less and less for the studio. So maybe that has something to do with it.
Rob, I've got a pitch for you. Got a pitch. Tell me what you think of this. And I this is inspired by a conversation I see going on in the live chat. Okay, take this. You got to up the stakes in every movie, right? Every movie's got to have the stakes go up. What if Dom and the team have to steal this doomsday device so it doesn't destroy the world, but they realize it's going to go off, but there's nobody in the world right now that knows how to deactivate this doomsday. And in order to save the world, they've got to take all their race cars and drive at a certain speed and jump into the future 1,000 years, and they end up on the same world as Star Trek Discovery is on right now, and they make a giant crossover cinematic universe Will that get you into Star Trek Discovery if Dominic Toretto is there too, and he joins Starfleet?
Only if the Doomsday device is what destroyed all the dilithium and created the burn. As
see, you're already creatively thinking about this. See, your mind's already working on it.
So it was actually the Fast and the Furious crew that destroyed the Federation.
Accidentally destroyed it. There, see, your mind, man. The way that you interconnect these narrative threads is a thing of beauty.
I'm telling you. Yeah, you know, what can I say? Look. Here's what I'm pulling for. I want the Han spinoff. Han, you can still get Sun Kang cheaper than, say, Dominic Toretto, cheaper than Vin Diesel. Give me my Han and Giselle trilogy. Gal Gadot and Han traveling around Europe, fighting crime before Giselle dies. Make it a period piece, from 10 years ago, and just give me that. I want to see Han and Giselle traveling around Europe, heart-to-heart style, having a romantic time solving crimes.
Now let me ask you this, because every time the Fast 9 comes up, because we check in on this every couple of months, I want to see where your head's on this right now. What do you think the chances are right now that Han actually ends up being the villain of like the final, not only of 9, but maybe like the final 3 films, and it's family versus because I remember you thought there's a distinct possibility that they do that Han, something happened in that period of time, and now whatever, maybe he's that mysterious voice at the end of Hobbs and Shaw. I don't know, where's your thinking right now on that Han actually gets revealed to be like the big antagonist for the last couple of films?
I mean, as long as he wins and kills everybody in the end and he's left standing.
As long as he wins.
I mean, I want Han, and then he goes back to Tokyo and takes over the entire Yakuza. The entire Japanese underworld is now being led by a Korean. And maybe he teams up with Lucy Liu a la Kill Bill, and they run all of Asia. That's I would like that. I would like him to be an uber villain that wipes out all the rest of the team.
All right, listen, guys. You guys know my thought on this. I just don't believe that 12 is going to be the final one, but I decided to make that the topic of today's question of the day. And I simply asked you guys this when I put this up just before the show started. I put up this question. Right now, almost 3,500 of you guys have already voted on it. Question. They just announced that Fast and Furious 11 will be the final one. Do you actually believe that? Right now, only 32% of you believe it. Only 32% of you are saying, yes, there won't be a number 12. And 68% of you seem to agree with James Gunn, saying, no, you don't believe it. They'll keep printing money. That's where we are on that right now. That's how I'm feeling about it. But the question is, how are you guys feeling about that right now? Do you guys think that Fast and Furious 11 will actually be the final in the franchise? If so, how do you guys feel about that? Jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, with all of that down and out of the way, let's now start moving into and taking your guys' live questions here on the show. Once again, if you want to get a live comment or question on the show, simply use the tip link that's at the top of the description of this video. You can just click on it there, or use the tip link manually, streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show if it's reasonable. And of course, you'll be supporting the show at the same time. And we all here thank you guys for that. All right. Let's move into this thing, shall we then? We're going to get things started off here with Ryan Lohner, who writes, the following sentence makes exactly as much sense as the way people in The Mandalorian talk about the Jedi. There was once a strange group of people who hardly anything is known of, and most don't even know existed. They were called the Backstreet Boys. Here's the thing. That's come up a lot in conversations about Star Wars, about, hey, the Jedi were this galaxy-influencing organization for millennia. Like, how all of a sudden, you got to remember though, that in Star Wars, once Palpatine eliminated the Jedi, they eliminated everything about the Jedi, right? And for a generation, nobody could speak about it. You couldn't say Jedi. I mean, it was completely outlawed. And if you have an entire generation and a half of people growing up in a universe where you can't even mention Jedi, you can't say that, for a lot of them, it becomes myth and legend. It does seem rather quickly it does that, especially if there are like internet records or HoloNet records. But again, I'm guessing Palpatine's empire probably strove to wipe all of those out. So while it does, I agree with you, it does seem a little bit ridiculous on the surface. If you really think about it, what, 30 years have passed? 40 years have passed? It's not that crazy when you think about it, really. Or maybe it is a little bit and you just got to suspend disbelief. All right, Ready Teddy said, he writes, "Hey, John, in case my comment didn't make the main topic cut, Michael B. Jordan is working with DC to produce a live-action Static Shock movie. It's confirmed by Dennis Cowan and Reggie Hudlin that there also may be cinematic Dakotaverse. What are your thoughts?" I read the story. Rob, I don't know if you read this story or not about Michael B. Jordan and Static Shock.
I did.
I still get the impression it's not actually going to happen. I feel like this is one of those many Hollywood projects that gets put into development. But you got to remember, 98% of the movies that start development don't actually end up on the screen at some point. And I have a feeling, I don't know why, I can't quantify this. I have a feeling Static Shock is one of those. Rob, what do you think about the story, and what do you think its chances are of it actually coming to fruition?
Well, I mean, I like, it was a good animated show, and I was a big fan of the Milestone comic universe. They had characters like Icon, and I think it's a good universe to start looking at. And Static Shock, or just Static, would be a great place to start. But again, it seems like one of those ideas that they announce, but like you said, who knows if it's ever actually going to happen? I feel like so many of these things these days, people announce like, oh, wouldn't this be great if? And people only have so much time in the day. And I don't know, but I think if they did it, Michael B. Jordan would be the guy. I know that he's a very smart guy. And I know
Uber smart.
He has a mind. Yeah, I think he has a mind toward directing, and I could see him doing something like this. But again, I mean, he's so busy with so many different things. Who knows when he's going to have the time?
All right, let's move on to the next one here. Anonymous writes, "My fear of moving stairs has begun. My fear of moving stairs has begun to escalate." All right, I'll give you the drum shot for that one. All right, Man of Steel Rules tips in $50. Thank you so much, Man of Steel Rules, for supporting the channel on that level, man. Man of Steel Rules writes, "John, thanks for recommending the Asus ZenBook Pro Duo. I ordered two, one for my son and another for myself. Should arrive on the 26th. Pricey, but worth it." Rob, I can't remember if you were here. Let me see if I can bring it up. ZenBook Pro Duo. Here we go. I don't know if you were here when somebody wrote in and asked me about a good laptop for their kid. And one of the things that I said was the ZenBook Pro Duo. And the reason I said the ZenBook Pro Duo, besides the fact that I want it myself, let me bring up a picture of it here. For those of you who don't know, I love talking tech, so give me a second with this. I want this laptop so bad. So bad. If you look at it here, for those of you who've never seen the ZenBook Pro Duo, that is a second monitor above the keyboard. That is literally a second monitor, touch monitor above the keyboard. And I have seen people show their workflow with this thing. It's not just some novelty. It is extremely practical. And then you see they do that really neat thing of moving the mouse pad off to the right, which again, a lot of people think, you'd think this would be odd, but think about when you're using your computer, that's where your mouse using hand is anyway normally. They say it's very intuitive. And that touchpad is also a little bit of a display. It like brings up a number pad digitally on it. So if you need a number pad, like full-size keyboards have, but a lot of laptops won't, that thing will turn into a number pad that you can use if you do a lot of numbers and a lot of spreadsheets and stuff like that. And it's powerful as hell. But he's not wrong. This is a pricey laptop. I think you can be looking between $2,000 and $3,000 for this thing. Maybe even more depending on how decked out you get it. But, oh, Rob, I tell you, I look at that thing. My mouth is watering. I want that thing so bad. I just can't justify. I cannot justify to myself getting it. I don't need it right now, but oh my God, I want it. Anyway,
yeah, but do you really need anything other than clothes and food and a place to hang your hat? I think you
Well,
should
I
get
mean,
it.
when it comes to work, like I need my desktop. I need that camera. I need that lens, like, because they go into. I can't think of why I would need this laptop. I just want it. You know what I mean? And so it's kind of like the full size Thanos statue for $1,200. I don't need it. I just really want it.
You should have it.
Maybe at someday I'll break down and get it.
Why
Anyway,
not?
Man of Steel rules. I'm glad I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad that it appealed to you. I hope you have a great experience with it. Please do let me know how it works out for you, because I'm so jealous that you're going to have them. Anyway, I hope you enjoy it, man. And thanks again for supporting the show on that level. All right, Frank writes, just realized something while watching a movie with my 5-year-old nephew. You have your greatest movie experiences as a kid. As a kid, you don't watch a movie. You are looking through a window into a magical world. As an adult, you are looking at actors performing their roles. You see a set and costumes, visual effects, and you are following a story somebody wrote. The magic is gone, and we can't go back. The magic window is closed for us. Frank, I completely see what you're saying. I can completely see what you're saying. But I have to disagree. When a movie is done right, all those things you just explained can absolutely be a part of our movie experience, even as adults. Rob, I don't know what you would say to this, but like when I look back to when I saw Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring for the first time, and I'm in this movie theater, the Silver City Cineplex Theater in Ancaster, Ontario, which is part of Hamilton. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching this. And the moment we get into the narrative and you see Gandalf riding into the Shire, and we see the Shire and Hobbit, and I don't care how old I was. I could have been 5, I could have been 50. It was magic. It was magic. I remember going to see Avengers for the first Avengers movie. And I don't care if I was 5 or 50. It was magical to me. I was so swept up in this world of heroes and aliens and whatever. I remember walking out of the theater with my wife, Ann, and I was shaking. I had so much adrenaline pumping through me. I was shaking. Like I was just whisked there. When a movie is done well, it can transcend that age and whatever. And so I completely, again, I see where you're coming from, Frank, but I just tell you, I've had a different experience. As a movie fan, I have had a different experience. Rob, what would you say to that?
Oh, I'm with you. I mean, movies have never stopped being magical to me. In my adult life, after I got out of college, I think about movie-going experiences I had when I saw Jurassic Park for the first time. When Sam Neill gets up and sees the brachiosaur rearing up and taking the leaves off the top of the palm trees, and he pulls his glasses down, I felt just like he did. I'd never seen photorealistic dinosaurs like that before. I'm like, oh my God. When Neo takes the red pill in Matrix and wakes up and finds out that he's part of a giant human battery system, I lost my shit. I was like, no, like Keanu Reeves himself. I was like, no way. I think I exclaimed that in the theater out loud when I saw it on the Warner lot at the Steve Ross Theater. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And like you, when I was watching Avengers, I couldn't believe that I was actually watching that movie. And there was so many moments in Avengers, being a lifelong comic book fan, that I'm just like, obviously the shot when you're spinning around the Avengers that we saw in the trailer, you already knew that was coming. But when you're seeing it in context, and even moments where like the Hulk for no reason at all just punches Thor, I lost my shit. I'm like, how have they made this? Like, how does this even exist? And I felt that way, dude, when I watched Infinity War. I mean, talk about all 4 of those Avengers. All 4 Avengers movies have made me feel that way. I can't believe they exist. Like watching Doctor Strange diss Tony Stark. How is this happening?
Yeah.
How am I watching this? And I think that if you grow up, as I like to call people, imagination connoisseurs, I have kept a perpetual sense of wonder. I don't know how I've been able to do it, but I have, because it's never gone away. The magic of the movies has never gone away from me, and I keep hearing and seeing things. I mean, dude, I see a trailer for a James Bond movie, and I'm like, 6 years old, talking to my mom. Hey, Mom, ABC Sunday Night Movie, Diamonds Are Forever's on, and I have that same excitement, And look, when I saw the Mandalorian trailer that people said it wasn't that great of a trailer Monday night, I'm like, bring that shit on, son. Yes. Bring me some Mando season 2. It's Mando Night Football, and I'm excited. I mean, we live in an age of, like Conan said, or Mako said in Conan, the first Conan, an age of wonder. I mean, what's not to love?
Yeah. May we never lose that sense of magic. All right. Thanks for sending that in, Frank. All right. Next up, we've got Cameron Barnett, who writes, should Netflix have their own movie awards since many Oscar caliber movies this year are coming from Netflix? I would hesitate to use the word many. I think they have two legitimate Oscar kind of films that have come out this year. They've had The Five Bloods and they've had Trial of the Chicago 7. However, I would say that Netflix has so much content that, yeah, I think Netflix should have its own internal little awards thing. They acquire and purchase so many movies, and they produce a lot of their own stuff as well. And between all the television stuff they put out, I mean, they don't replace the Emmys or the Oscars, obviously, but they have so much content internally. I think they should have their own little award show. To say, hey, this is what was best on Netflix. In our little house here, this was what we're celebrating the best of the year in our company. I see no problem with that, and I think that would be an interesting thing to do. I think it's a good idea, Cameron. All right, Mike Schwenk writes, hey, John, I know with the holidays coming up, you'll be getting plenty of people bringing up the Die Hard as a Christmas movie debate, and it's not, by the way. For those people, I thought of a way to shut them down. With their same logic, that would make Eyes Wide Shut also a Christmas movie. Don't laugh, Mike. I have heard people say that Eyes Wide Shut is a Christmas movie. So I have heard that. It is. Case in point. So here's the crux of the debate. The crux of the debate is, does a movie taking place during the Christmas season de facto make it a Christmas movie? Some will make arguments that no, it's not. Some will make arguments that yes, it does, that's the criteria required. I mean, I think everybody agrees a movie like, say, what's the name of the movie again with every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings? It's not Miracle on 34th. It's A Wonderful Life. So everybody agree, like Christmas is a central theme. We all agree that's a Christmas movie. But then is Home Alone a Christmas movie? It takes place at Christmas time, but is it? Some will say taking place at Christmas time means it is definitively a Christmas movie. Some will say it won't. And I think that's the dividing line with Die Hard, because even right now you're looking at two guys who vehemently disagree on this. I very strongly am of the camp that no, Die Hard is absolutely not a Christmas movie. Rob, on the other hand, very much believes it is a Christmas movie. So, I mean, and I think the fact, Rob, that you said that Eyes Wide Shut is a Christmas movie, that kind of illustrates the difference of opinion on that, right? So it is what it is. What do you think?
In a way, both Eyes Wide Shut and Die Hard are kind of about the same thing, which is the reuniting of a family. And that isn't that what Christmas is all about? Spending time with your family. I mean, John McClane, all he wants to do is get back together with his wife and his children.
But so is Taken. Does that make Taken a Christmas movie? Does that Liam Neeson, is that a Christmas movie? Because it's about him but the fact, reuniting with his daughter?
Die Hard could take place at any time of the year, but it doesn't. They chose to set it at Christmas time.
But you just made my argument there. You could take Die Hard and make it at any other season, any other holiday, any other season, any other time of the year, holiday or not, and it doesn't change the movie. And that's why, to me, it is not a Christmas movie.
But thematically it does, because it's about the Christmas miracle. It's the time for miracles. Hans Gruber, his whole plot is based on taking place at Christmas, because they go in the Christmas party when there's nobody. They're the only people in the building, and the whole idea of what's going on. I mean, there's a metaphor there that's playing out about the magic of Christmas. And hopefully Hans Gruber sees it as his magical time. He's looking for his big Christmas payday. And John McClane is looking for, getting together with his wife and kids, the Christmas spirit. What is more Christmassy than John McClane traveling across the country to get back with his wife? I mean, it's exactly what's supposed to happen at Christmas, bringing families together. And the same is true of Eyes Wide Shut.
I think that's a stretch, because by that logic, I think so if Air Force One happened to take place during the Christmas season, you could take all those arguments you just made and you would be saying that Air Force One is a Christmas movie.
Well, no, because thematically that's not necessarily the case. Whereas in a movie like Die Hard, it's specifically about a man trying to get back together with his family.
Right, but there's 1,000 movies about that don't take place at Christmas time. There's 1,000 movies like that.
But still, I mean, you can't deny that.
Oh, I can. With
Die Hard,
listen,
if it was just about some,
we've got to move on. We still got a bunch of questions we got to get to. But you and I'm sure, as we get closer to Christmas, we'll be having this debate even more.
We should do a show and debate about why Lethal Weapon, Gremlins, Die Hard, and Eyes Wide Shut are all beautiful Christmas movies.
There's an argument to be made for Gremlins, though, because I think that one scene in particular with who's the actress? That wasn't what's the name of the actress? I was gonna say it's not Phoebe Cates, but it was Phoebe.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that makes it an interesting. That one scene makes it a very, very interesting debate about whether Gremlins. That makes it a really interesting. Anyway, we got to move on. You still got a bunch of questions to get to here. KW Garrett writes, have you watched the Vow documentary series on HBO? I have not. If not, the series is told in a confusing manner where time is not linear. I never knew when something was happening. I appreciate the effort to be artsy, but I wish it had been told from beginning to end. I got to be honest with you, KW. I'm not even familiar with the Vow. I don't think I've heard of it. Rob, are you familiar with this documentary?
Yeah. It's about the Keith Raniere's NXIVM sex cult that the girl from Smallville was recruiting people for, and
okay,
Catherine Oxenberg's daughter. There's even a documentary with Catherine Oxenberg's daughter, and I have not watched it, but I can't wait. If there's anything, if I didn't want to get into the entertainment business, I think becoming a sex guru and starting your own cult like Keith Raniere would have been a profession that I might have been interested in.
It's funny. I came across a clip on YouTube of Michael Rosenbaum, because he does a podcast, Michael Rosenbaum, who played Lex Luthor on Smallville. And he had the girl who played Kara, who played Clark's cousin, Supergirl, as a guest on his show. And she was telling the story about how the girl from, I keep forgetting what her character's name was.
Allison Mack is her name.
Allison Mack is the name of the actress. I keep forgetting what the name of the character. Anyway, but she was telling the story about how Allison Mack tried to recruit her, Kara, into this sex cult thing. And it's no, I wasn't aware that this thing existed. So that's interesting, KW. I might have to check that out sometime. But yeah, since I haven't seen it, I can't really comment on it. That's an interesting observation you made, though. All right, the Wakandan Forever writes, we live in a Twilight world. Before seeing Tenet, I must admit I was pretty dismissive of both Pattinson and Washington. I would refer to them as Denzel's son or the Twilight guy. I won't be making that mistake anymore. Save judgment until you see the movie. And listen, if I had not seen Ballers, and if I had not seen a Black Klansman, I also probably would have gone into Tenet thinking they just cast him because he's Denzel Washington's kid. Fortunately, I had seen Black Klansman, and it's awesome. And I had seen him in Ballers, and he's really good. And of course, Pattinson, you'd be forgiven thinking he's just the Twilight kid if you hadn't seen a bunch of these smaller indie films that he's done in the last 10 years, which show that he's amazing. But if you hadn't seen those, you'd be forgiven for thinking that. The Wakanda Forever writes, I don't care. I love it. Number one, Brightburn. Oh, I wish I liked Brightburn. I was so excited about Brightburn. I didn't like it, but I'm glad you did. Rocky 5, The Meteor Man, Punisher Warzone. By the way, I also really like Punisher Warzone. I think that one's really good. The Last Dragon, Superman 4, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, Bride of Chucky, Leprechaun, Alien vs. Predator. Yeah, I said, well, you know what, Wakanda Forever? You embrace us. We all have a long list of movies that everybody doesn't like, but that we secretly do. So I'm glad you're wearing that one proudly, man. And by the way, I also really like Punisher. I think Punisher Warzone is very underrated. I think that movie's a lot of fun. Selma McShave writes, although you always think twice before diving into a Netflix movie, the trailer for Mank looks good. It has a great cast, and it's fascinating that they decided to go black and white. It seems to have Oscar ambitions, especially since it has connections to movie making. Yeah, like I saw... They dropped another trailer for Mank, Rob. And
I know.
The first one, I'll be honest with you. I didn't think there was anything special about the first one. If you didn't know the names of the people attached and you just had the trailer, there was nothing to be excited about. I still contend the only reason people were excited about it was because of the names that were on there. You take away the names, I thought there was nothing to be excited about it. I thought this new trailer was a totally different story. I thought this trailer was actually quite good, and it's got me kind of revved for it. And yeah, I thought it was quite better. What do you think about the trailer that dropped?
First of all, I mean, David Fincher is one of my favorite filmmakers working, so I'll watch anything that he would do. And this movie is about the making of Citizen Kane and all that. It's right up my alley. And I've been dying to see this since it was announced. I didn't think this movie was ever going to get made. Like, make a movie about Herman Mankiewicz? I mean, really? Hell yeah. Bring it on. Can't wait.
All right, next up, we've got an anonymous viewer who writes, hey, John, how are you today? I'm doing well, thank you. I recently watched the new film Love and Monsters, and I quite liked it. Yeah, it looks like a total ripoff of Zombieland, but it actually still looks pretty good. I'm intrigued by it. That being said, why hasn't Dylan O'Brien gotten very big roles? I think he's a good actor, and I wish we could see more of his stuff. I think... There's a couple. Look, whenever anybody asks Rob in this town about why doesn't so-and-so get more roles, you've got to understand, for every role you see, there were 500 other people with aspirations, maybe 5,000 other people with aspirations to get that role. It is an extremely competitive thing. There is a reason that 0.2% of the people who come to LA to chase dreams of being an actor actually make anything of a career out of it. I mean, look, Rob, I even remember when I was with AMC and I put out a casting call because it was the first time we were looking to get an online on-camera host. I will always remember this. And so we put out a casting call for a host, the type of role that, Ashley Mova and Sinead DeFries would go on to become really famous for doing for us. And they were amazing at that job. But in the earliest days when we were looking for our first one, I still remember I put out the casting call. I had hoped I would get at least 10 to 20 applicants that I could choose from. I got like over 700 applications. 700 applications for a small, paid like, I think at the time, $30 per appearance thing. And I got like 700 applications. Can you imagine putting out a thing? I put out a cat for my movie, for the documentary, Movie Trailers, A Love Story, which, by the way, guys, don't forget, keep your eyes open for Movie Trailers, A Love Story. Going to be coming available to you sometime before the end of the year, just so you know, just throwing that out there. But I had put out a casting call just for a narrator, because I was thinking about having a narrator that also occasionally throughout the film also appeared on camera to kind of, physically walk you through the movie. And I eventually just went with an all voice narrator, and I put out a casting call. Thousands, Rob, of applicants I got. You imagine trying to get like a role in a Hollywood television show or movie. And it's like, why hasn't Dylan O'Brien got it? Why has he gotten as many roles as he has? It's lucky and it's rare. So I don't know, Rob, how would you address that? Why hasn't Dylan O'Brien gotten more roles? How would you address that?
Well, like you just said, because, sometimes it's the luck of the draw. Like you were saying, 20 years ago or 21 years ago, whatever, we were making free enterprise. We didn't have the internet, right? The way it is now. So when you put out a casting call, like you said, you would get an 8x10 photograph of an actor in the mail, unsolicited. And you'd look at the photograph and you'd maybe call the actor. In a week, when we announced the casting of the movie, we got over 10,000 headshots. 10. The mailman hated us. But what's interesting is, and all these headshots are beautiful, attractive people, whatever. But you can look at all these guys, and they kind of all look the same. A lot of them are these just generically lantern-jawed, handsome dudes. So anybody could fit the role. But when you're looking at them, a lot of them that are perfectly acceptable, or you've even seen work that they've done, they just don't fit the part, or they're too much like somebody else. I mean, you just never know why people don't work more. Are they up for the right roles? Sometimes they're perpetually not. Even though they're great performers, there is a bit of a luck of the Irish when it comes to getting cast in movies and television, as good as you might be.
All right.
So
good answer. Let's move on here. Raymond Verrata writes, Natalie Portman appeared on Jimmy Fallon. I'm glad she mentioned that they were pushing through with the prep work with Thor in Australia. I'm excited now. Also, last Sunday, Marvel were here in San Francisco filming Shang-Chi. Yeah, again, one of the good pieces of news in the midst of pandemic when it comes to the entertainment business is that a lot of production has been ramping back up. I mean, still don't have movie theaters, but they're going to have the movies there ready to go when the movie theaters are open again, whenever that happens, and if they're still alive by the time that happens. But it is really cool to see, and it's really, listen, I am so excited for Thor, Love and Thunder. There are a few things about it that I'm a little bit apprehensive about, I admit, but, just Taika Waititi being there, all that kind of stuff, and Shang-Chi. I was already excited about Shang-Chi, but when I finally got around to watching Kim's Convenience, where Lou is from, he's our lead character. Once I started watching Kim's Convenience, and I'm like, oh yes, now I really can't wait for Shang-Chi. So I'm right with you there, Raymond. Speed Fire writes, hey John, congrats on the documenting. I think you mean documentary. Congrats on the documentary. It's an incredible achievement, as I as well have my very first children's book coming out very soon. I'm not saying the title. Ooh. How will we be able to see your film in the UK? All right. So first of all, congratulations, Speedfire. Like, everybody says they're going to do a book or a project or whatever. Very few people actually follow through and do it. So congrats on you. The very fact that you did your book is an amazing accomplishment. Congrats on that. You'll be able to see my film in the UK. How? I haven't worked out all those details yet. That's something that actually Rob and I continue to talk about. Like, how are we going to get this out to everybody? Again, my goal is to have it out and available by the end of the year, which is coming up very, very quickly. Exactly how? I have an idea, but we haven't locked anything in yet. So I will let you guys know once I know more information for sure. All right. Wyatt Bender writes, but thanks for asking, dude. I appreciate that. Wyatt Bender writes, hey, John, there happens to be a video game I think has potential to be a film franchise. That game is the Max Payne series. It had a movie with Mark Wahlberg back in 2008, but it fell flat for me. They didn't follow such a simple story that well. Yeah, I don't know. Listen, in a world, anything can be a good movie franchise. Anything. That's where the whole Felipe the Sentient Dancing Microphone idea comes from. Anything can make a good movie. If Lego can make a movie about stupid plastic square blocks and make an incredible film out of it, anything can be a good franchise. That means any video game franchise can possibly have the potential to make a good movie. Max Payne is no different. The potential is there. But I think it's since they already tried it, I'm not saying they'll never do it again. I just think you're going to be waiting for a while before you see them do it again. There'll be other video game franchises they try to get a leg up on first. Last of Us, obviously something that's got some motion going to it. God of War is something that would make, what's the big Western one? Red Dead Redemption is one that I know there's been some interest in. Halo is one. So the fact that they already tried it means I think it's probably going to be a while before we see somebody take another swing at it. Speedfire writes, I feel as though The Mandalorian 2 will have more mixed response than season 1 due to people's fan theories not becoming true, and ones that do, people will say pandering to fans. In my opinion, that's what drove a lot of more negative reaction to the sequel trilogy. Well, I think a lot of people didn't like the sequel trilogy. I love The Force Awakens. I like The Last Jedi. I didn't like The Rise of Skywalker. But none of those had to do with my fan theories or anything like that. I think there were a lot of people who hated all of the Star Wars trilogy, the new trilogy, simply because it didn't work for them. There's that. I do agree, though, that Mandalorian Season 2 now, there's no surprise left. Now there are expectations. I think with Mandalorian Season 1, people were just thrilled we were getting it. Now there are expectations. And listen, there's going to be a lot of upset people. There's going to be a lot of Ahsoka Tano fans that are going to be very upset when they realize she's only in one episode. And they don't use her the way they think she should be used. I mean, they're whatever. It is what it is. But we're all like that, right? We all have our favorite characters and we all will get disappointed or whatever. But you're right. I think with the Mandalorians, Rob, I think it's fair to say that in Mandalorian Season 2, there are now a lot more expectations. There are now things people want to see. We went into the first Mandalorian. It's like not a lot of things, not a lot of fans saying, you better have this, and this for me to like it. I think we're all a lot more open-minded. I think he's right. There is a danger going into Season 2 of more fans saying, well, now that I've seen Season 1, I think they should do this, and this for Season 2. And when it doesn't happen, they may be upset. There is the potential for that. Rob, how big do you think that danger is?
Well, I mean, look, I think people just want to spend time in the Star Wars universe and have a good time doing it, as opposed to watching a movie like Rise of Skywalker where you ask yourself, what the hell is this every 5 minutes? And I think The Mandalorian does that. I think The Mandalorian, whether it's a surprise or not, I think that it's like going to, when you go to Galaxy's Edge or whatever, just being in the Star Wars universe is a place people love to go and be in. And I think The Mandalorian is the equivalent of going into your Star Wars candy store where you get Boba Fett looking dudes, you got a Baby Yoda, you got Moff Gideon, you've got TIE fighters, you got everything that you want, is surrounding you, and it's all creamy, nougaty Star Wars goodness. And I just don't think, I mean, The Mandalorian would have to be pretty bad for people to be disappointed in it. Even though, I mean, they know what they're getting, the surprise might be gone, but it's not even an hour long, by the time you might even get bored of it, it's over. It's like the perfect thing. And I at least I'm hoping it will be. I think Mando Season 2, they know they're going to give us even more nougaty goodness. You're going to be getting even more Star Wars stuff that you wanted to see, not less.
All right. Let's move on here. Justin, Time to Chat writes, despite its many mediocre sequels, the first the Transformer sequels weren't mediocre. They were absolute garbage. That's a subjective opinion. The first Transformers is in my top 5 films of all time. The simple story and premise, the characters, action, humor, not worrying about setting up a huge universe at the time, worked so well. I love it. Thoughts? Well, I won't say that the first Michael Bay Transformers movie is anywhere near my top 10, but I love that movie. It was, Rob, for me, that first one was honestly likened unto, the first Transformers movie is nowhere near as good as Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring. I'm not saying it is, but I had a similar experience. The way I described earlier in the show of seeing the Shire for the first time. Dude, the first time we see Optimus Prime drive through that Michael Bay mist and smoke through the dark alley, and then the camera starts to rotate around him as he begins the transformation, and the camera then starts pulling back as it's sweeping around in a circle and pulling back, and there standing Optimus Prime. Shut the hell up. Oh my God. I lost it. Like, emotionally, I lost it. It was the visual manifestation of this thing I had grown up loving so much like the Shire and all that kind of stuff with Lord of the Rings. I unabashedly love that first Transformers movie. I really do. I think the other ones are garbage, but that first one, nowhere near my top 10, Rob. But what was your experience like that time when you saw that first Transformers movie?
I loved it. I mean, you know what the shot for me that got me? The daylight shot I guess it's a helicopter shot. I don't think it was a drone yet, but it's flying toward the Griffith Park Observatory. And you see the Transformers on the outside of the observatory. I'm like, this is the coolest thing in the world, because complete verisimilitude. Photorealistic transforming robots in the real world is exactly what I love. I live for it, and seeing that. And I have to tell you, dude, I love 3. I love Dark of the Moon. I loved seeing anything to do with the space program, but the Battle of Chicago, 45 minutes of special effects bliss. Loved it.
Yeah,
Buildings falling into each other. I mean, come on. It's great.
All right. Hey Rob, I know we're at 10:30 now, or 11:30, but we don't have many questions left to get through. Can you hang in there for a few extra minutes so we can get through all these?
Yeah.
All right, let's roll here. Next one. Hey John, did you see that a couple of weeks ago, the Hollywood Reporter reported that a live-action 4-quadrant adaptation of Thomas the Tank Engine is being brought to us by the director of World War Z? I did see news about that. Again, it's something that I'll get a little more interested in the further along it gets developed. But again, if you know your target audience and you apply that principle properly, that could be something that could appeal to a lot of kids. This could be a successful kids movie, Rob. Like, I don't know. What were your quick thoughts on that?
I guess it could be anything with a great story and great characters, John.
Great story and great characters. All right, next up, Preston Walden writes, hey, John, and maybe Rob if he's here. So my question is, what do you think the effect would be on the Oscars if, say, the theaters go under? Okay, well, that's honestly a very long, wide, sweeping topic. Like, what do you do? I mean, what happens to everything in the entertainment industry if theaters go under? Most things will adapt. The Oscars will adapt if like the theaters are gone and stuff like that. But again, that is a huge, wide-ranging thing that we simply don't have time to sit here and talk about for the next 20 minutes. But they would adapt. I mean, they're already adapting. There's already movies streaming. There are ways they can qualify right now, and they will just simply continue to adapt. So I don't expect the art of movie making and the celebration of the art of movie making won't go under just because one way, granted the most important and best way to see them is gone. There will still be movies. There will still be movie making, and the Academy of Motion Pictures will continue to be there to celebrate them. But again, they'll just have to adapt if that happens. It's a great question though, Preston. All right, Jesse writes, my hope for the ending of the Fast franchise is after 9 and 10 being crazy, huge, ridiculous, nonsense action. If 11's big mission is stealing DVD players out of the back of a semi, just come full circle with it. Wasn't that like one of the big things they were doing in the first one was like to steal the DVD players? Yes. Oh my gosh. There's actually a part in my another plug, a part of my documentary we talk about VCRs, but that's funny. I'll leave it at that. But wouldn't that be something if they end up going? They need something out of that same damn truck. That would be funny, Jesse. All right, Wyatt Bender writes, I have finally watched The Boys, and I just finished the second season. Oh my God, I love this show. I am excited for the third season and excited to see Jensen Ackles as Soldier Boy. What other shows are there that I need to watch? Thoughts? Well, I mean, Rob, you often talk about how we live really in a golden age for television. There's great television right now. The ones I immediately gravitate to for sitcoms, Schitt's Creek, which, oh my God, I'm just getting into that for the first time. This show is so stupid good. Now I see why it won every single Emmy there was. Kim's Convenience, I am blown away by. Other shows, I am so The Boys, obviously. Umbrella Academy is fantastic. Doom Patrol is absolutely fantastic. You got any shows off the top of your head that The Expanse is fantastic.
Yeah,
you got any shows you'd rifle off?
Yeah, I mean, The Expanse is one. Did you say Umbrella Academy? I really liked Ozark. I really thought the third season of Ozark was terrific.
A lot of people love that. Yeah.
Yeah. There's so much good stuff right now.
But
Lovecraft Country.
Oh my God, I'm so glad you mentioned that. Yes, they just had their the finale. I still loved it, but it was a little scattered in my opinion. But I'll talk about Lovecraft Country. But definitely watch Lovecraft Country. There's a lot of there's a good amount of stuff for you, Wyatt, to keep you busy for the next little bit. All right, Mark C writes, I believe Lethal Weapon to be a Christmas movie. It starts with a classic Christmas song. Riggs is getting a free Christmas tree as he busts drug dealers, and boy, it was a gift for the audience. Again, I completely disagree. Just because something happens at a certain time does not mean it is thematically that thing. So
it's a redemption story. It's such a Christmas story.
Dude, there are a million redemption stories. It doesn't make them Christmas stories. Just because something is a redemption story that happens to take place is Christmas a central thematic part of the movie, like It's a Wonderful Life, like Miracle on 34th Street? Well, therein the debate lies, but I will disagree with Mark and Rob. I will disagree with Mark and Rob on that.
Riggs needs the Christmas spirit to heal his broken soul.
I do love that movie, though. That movie's so great. All right, Wyatt Bender writes, if Rob is still there, how about them Seahawks 5-0 for the first time in franchise history? If only their defense gets better. I'm from Tacoma, just about 25 to 30 miles away from Seattle. Damn, that is a fun team to watch football. The Seattle Seahawks they have been, ever since Pete Carroll got there as coach, they really became a fun. That's why I started really watching the Seahawks, is when Pete Carroll went there as their coach. They just became a very entertaining brand of football to watch. And I'll tell you what, his first couple of years, I was not on the Russell Wilson train. I thought he was a little bit, I'll be honest with you, I thought he was overrated. But oh my God.
Super Bowl twice.
Yep. I just thought that was more about the coach and thing, but he has evolved. He's got all the weapons now. I mean, he makes smart decision making. He is a legit A-grade pocket passer and yet can scramble for 20 when he needs to. He's got it all, and I just love watching these Seahawks, Rob. I really do. They're a fun team to watch.
They're the Jedi Knights of the Pacific Northwest.
I tell you what, man, I just dig them. All right, last one today, guys. Kyle Schroeder writes, it's just a bad idea to make a Power Rangers movie. All the fans of Power Rangers are in their 20s to 30s, and kids today don't care about it at all. If every fan of the franchise went to the theater, it still wouldn't be enough to make profit on at least a $150 million film. See, that's where I get confused, Rob, about this. And I said it earlier, but I'll bring it up again. This is clearly not going to appeal to the 20 and 30 somethings who have the nostalgia. The last Power Rangers movie proved that. They didn't come out to see it. They didn't go watch it. So if you want to target it at kids, why start with a big cinematic universe, and why set it in the 90s? That doesn't seem to me like a winning formula for getting a new generations of kids on board. If you want to get a new generation of kids on board, you take a different approach. But Rob, we often talk on this show about what is the path to victory for this? It's like, okay, you're going to put out a new Transformers movie. Okay, here's your path to victory. If you do this, and if you do this, this can happen. I don't see the path to victory for a brand new full television movie crossover cinematic universe set in the 90s of the Power Rangers. I just don't see what that path to victory is. Can you see a way that this can actually work out that maybe we're not thinking about?
No. When you think about Optimus Prime versus Megatron and the Decepticons, I mean, even saying those words as an adult, to me, that sounds cool. But who's Rita Repulsa? Repulsa. Like I say it, I laugh. How do you make the Power Rangers cool for anybody? It's not cool. Transformers are cool. Power Rangers, not cool. You can't make the Power Rangers cool unless, you know what, prove me wrong. There was that R-rated, remember that R-rated Power Rangers short they did?
Oh, yes, that got a bunch of the original cast.
Yeah, and it was hardcore. That was cool. If they made that kind of a Power Rangers movie, it could work. But they're not going to do that.
No, because Hasbro needs new generations of kids to buy the toys.
And by the way, yeah, and also, kids don't play with toys the way they used to. The toys... video games are so sophisticated now, and interactive electronics. It's just not the same world. But you know what? That R-rated short, Adi Shankar produced that, right? It was Adi Shankar who produced that short. Yeah. I mean, that movie, if they made that movie, that's how you bring the Power Rangers back.
I actually didn't even think this. I think the short was a great idea, and it was cool, but if that was actually a film, it would have got slaughtered. I think people would have said,
but it was cool.
But it was a neat approach. It was a different approach. Yeah. But anyway, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here and making this show a part of your day. And thanks to one Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett for gracing us with his presence. Robert, where can people follow you and your adventures online?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM. Find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett, or find me on my own YouTube channel. What's it called? The Burnett Work. And you can join our first annual Intergalactic Imagination Connoisseurs Film Festival, which has movies debuting almost every day. And you know what? As John Campea told you in one of his talks on walks, you should make a movie and enter it into the festival. You have until December 1st. Take John's advice.
You absolutely should. And guys, a special thank you to all of you who sent in the live questions, not just because you gave us great fun things to talk about, but also because you actually supported us doing this channel as you did it. And all of us here, thank you guys very much for that. All right, guys, make sure you do the 4 important things, please. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. That'll do it for us for today, guys. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.